great Canadian talk show.
And now, let's get right down to business with Marty Gold.
So on top of the work that I'm doing in that realm with Spirit of Kenny, we're going to be covering the 2023 provincial election, rather, the way we did the civic election, in a manner that's going to be unmatched by any of the corporate newsrooms, any of the Trudeau-funded newsrooms. That's them. That's not us. We are going to bring you the truth. We're going to bring you stories that matter. We're going to bring you information that nobody else dares reveal. Here in Macheteville, there's an apartment building. There's the old women's hospital on one side of the street on Notre Dame at the Emily, where they about 15 years ago, probably, they put up traffic lights. Years ago, there were none. And straight down the block is, going north, is the back end of the Health Sceinces Centre, the old emergency room entrance, etc. Police came across, got a report of two people fighting on Pearl. Oh, I should mention, so on one side of the street is the women's hospital, the old women's hospital. On the other side of the street are apartments that are populated by residents, nurses, doctors, it was part of the Health Sciences campus, right there on the street, right beside where doctors and nurses live. Report of a fight, two people, one armed with a machete, bloodied, a trail. Oh God! A witness told the Free Press he called 911 after noticing a trail of blood as the wounded man stumbled across Notre Dame near Pearl. This has actually happened across the street from that residence, and then he comes across because he's trying to make his way to Health Sceinces Centre. He was the first of two people to be assaulted with a machete by a group of suspects in the Daniel McIntyre area.
Oh, man.
This would be right near, from the sounds of it, right near Penner Park, which is one of the most dangerous parks, has been in the past in Winnipeg. Hospital staff and paramedics got to the sidewalk to treat this unfortunate fellow. Yes, officers got a call of a report of two males fighting in the 600 block of Notre Dame. So basically right by the Maryland Hotel, KFC, machete, sure. The machete-wielding male fled before officers arrived. While investigating, police learned of a group of people who were involved in the incident, assaulted a woman in her 30s with the machete. While they fled the scene on Notre Dame, she didn't report any injuries, was seemingly unharmed. Well, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
You ready for this, Kenny?
Shoot.
Crimes involving machetes are not specifically tracked by Winnipeg police.
Well, no, because they're just like large knives, so they probably have a category.
Knives accounted for 11% of violent crimes involving a weapon. 1 in 5 knife crimes could not be solved because the victim did not want to participate. That's the new word for cooperate. And the Free Press story also mentions the attack in St. James by the machete-wielding fellow. Actually, Kenny, I guess this proves your point that people get on from earlier in the program. You're right. People do get on buses with machetes, because that guy got off a bus and hacked a 52-year-old, giving him life-altering injuries on Ness and Mount Royal on February 9th. And might I add, I don't know that this was reported anywhere. That is within walking distance of the home of, guess who? Mayor Scott Gillingham.
That's so bad.
Ain't good. Another story this week I want to jump on, and we talked about this during the civic election coverage, about the award-winning Centre Village housing complex at 575 Balmoral, surrounded with fencing, the orange-colored buildings, because in the old days, they may have been rooming houses, but they were functional. They had proper supervision. People lived there on very low income. And then the city said, no, you have to upgrade this, upgrade that. We'll give you a ticket if you do it, and we'll give you a ticket if you don't do it. And the next thing you know, down it goes, and the award-winning architects get their hands on the project, and $3 million plus later, what do you end up with? Breaking in the fence lately, and now you've got squatters, you've got drugs going on, all sorts of public disorder. Nobody in their right mind, said an area resident who lives across the street named Jason Keenan. Nobody in their right mind would build a property like that in this neighborhood. There's so many cubbyholes and hiding places for drug users and stuff. If anybody knew anything about this area, they would never have built that thing. It doesn't fit in this neighborhood. But the architects won awards. Now, a reminder that The Guardian in 2016 called it apartments poorly suited to family life, and a building structure seems to act as a magnet for drinking and drug taking at all hours. That's because the kitchens, they didn't have a view of the courtyard. And just a stupid looking complex. 3.7 million, including 1.5 million in grants for the provincial and federal governments, open in 2010. The tenants started to leak away because it was not suitable housing for immigrant families. They couldn't watch their kids in the courtyard. I think there are 3 stories, just a pain in the ass all the way around. People moved out. Keenan's lived across the street for 7 years. Even getting the fence installed took years. A few months ago, 8 people were pulled out of the building by security and apprehended by police. And once the fence wasn't repaired by Manitoba Housing, the trouble started again. For the other neighbors, he says he called Manitoba Housing, and he's been told to call the police. When he called the police in Central Park, they don't show up that fast. It's a Manitoba Housing project. Nobody's living in it. Taxpayer money is going towards a building that they're now trying to sell. They're allowing vagrants to stay in and destroy. As of February 1st, there were 5,423 people waiting for subsidized housing on Manitoba Housing's wait list. And they're leaving this get destroyed. As Mr. Keenan, a brave individual, told the media, if this was out in Charleswood, one of these new developments or something like that, the police would be out there, the community would be all over it. Nobody does anything about it. Police are in the 500 block of Balmoral, dispatched once every day and a half on average. It used to be more until Murder Mansion burned down.
That's how we solve problems here. They just burn down the buildings.
I don't think that's in Manitoba Housing's mandate to let properties go derelict, but time and again we've seen it through different levels of government, and this is what happens. You have self-perpetuating bureaucracies.
Yeah.
And when you have no political will, and it's the fault of all political parties.
Yeah, it's really a missed opportunity to help some people.
They don't want to help people. They want to help themselves. They could have solved this problem years ago. The first way they could have solved the problem is tell everybody involved in the, and it came from originally from Knox United Church, and then it was supposed to be housing specifically for, I'm trying to remember, it was tied in with a Muslim charity or something, and that idea wasn't going to work. I'm not going to say it's perfectly good housing. It wasn't perfectly good housing, but it was usable housing that a private landlord was taking care of. And granted, that was like 25 years ago. There's no reason to think that it couldn't have been handled by the private sector. Instead, $1.5 million in government grants, and it's sitting empty. And this is only after 13 years. Listen, some neighbors in the city, they fall into decay over a period of 20 years, 30 years. This took half the time. But not before the architects got their award for an idea that was stupid.
Award-winning.
Award-winning. Pats on the back. Ribbons cut.
Great job, everyone. We solved the problem.
Yeah, great job, everyone. Lastly, since we talk about crime and courts and public safety, we've talked about crime. We talked about public safety. We'll fill in the courts right now. There's a fellow when he was 16, killed his mother, bludgeoned her in her bed when he was 16. He was convicted by a jury in a very unusual move. The judge last month rejected a motion by the Crown to sentence the man as an adult. The jury convicted him in June 2022 of second-degree murder. He was on trial for first-degree murder. It's very rare for a jury verdict to be overturned, and normally appeal courts will uphold them. This fellow's gotten a sentence, the maximum. No, they want to sentence him as an adult. A judge said no. He gave him the maximum use sentence of 7 years custody, 3 of which are served in the community. He's appealing it. And as according to sources of the Free Press, retained James Lockyer, who has been known to get all sorts of people off of various heinous crimes. This was a sad story of a family that was deeply dysfunctional. The night before the killing, he bought his mother flowers, made her dinner, all part of a ruse to divert attention from himself, according to the newspaper report. Pretended to be running errands and texting his mother after he had killed her the next morning.
What a guy.
She had been dependent on him from the age of 14. The mother had manifest health problems. It was a shared custody with the former husband. So it's a bad family dynamic. You know what? Nobody's asked in this story. And as I said, now this is being appealed like being sentenced to the maximum sentence as a child when he could easily have been sentenced as an adult with the degree of premeditation and alibi invention. And he's appealing that. But you know what I haven't heard discussed? Where was the help for this family? Where was the help for this child? Where was the school? And I'm just asking, the school counselors, CFS, healthcare professionals. How did this happen? I haven't seen that addressed. The courts won't be addressing it. They'll be addressing what is a fair and proper sentence. But when you look at the details, and I'm leaving it out, including how he used bleach to clean up the crime scene, disposed the murder weapon, the level of violence, in my opinion, even the 7 years of consequence are not, in my opinion, sufficient to provide deterrence and to provide a sense of safety for the community at large. And I'm going to be following this case through the appeal process when it comes up. It's a terrible story, but this was an example of a family that needed help. And hey, maybe Nahanni Fontaine will bring it up, right? Family Services Group. Maybe she'll start asking questions about the case because the sentence has been rendered. She can talk about it to the legislature. But she won't, because it happened in Charleswood. It doesn't involve people whose votes she's trying to curry. And nobody's going to bring this up, but this is an example of what happens when the system, granted, this is a terrible case, but this was falling apart from the time the kid was 14, 15, 16, and he was 16 when he committed it. So there's got to be some other accountability along the way. I don't know if there's going to be an inquest or inquiry held in this or not, but not what gives confidence in either the courts, the overturning of the jury verdict, not on appeal, but by the trial judge, and not sentencing this fellow as an adult. And as I said, we're going to keep an eye on this case. So sad situation. And I'd like to hear again, verdict's been rendered. It's in appeal. I think they can talk about it while it's in appeal. I don't think maybe some lawyer out there can let me know, but I don't think that it's out of bounds for legislators to talk about what can we do to improve legislation to help families before they end up with this kind of a tragedy underneath their own roof. It's just horrible, horrible situation, compounded, in my opinion, by the courts not imposing a just sentence.
Hey, Marty.
Kenny?
How often does this type of violence get flagged beforehand? And should have been stopped. It should have been seen before.
There's a technical term for killing your father, killing your mother, killing your brother's fratricide. I don't remember what it would be for. It is rare, but that's the level of murder is rare. But to the level of like family violence, not unheard of. Like, how could the system be improved to get families the help they need, and what should that help be? And maybe there needs to be coordination between the community groups these families might be involved in, whether they're the churches or other service groups or something. I don't know. But the warning signs, I haven't read anything that there weren't warning signs that this kid was troubled.
Yeah.
And surely to God, the school guidance counselor, somebody must have noticed something. It's not, I don't see anywhere in the free press reporting or any of the other reporting I can recall that, well, he was drinking or he had a drug problem. It could be that was part of it too. But even that should have been flagged. It's just a tragedy. And
as a 14-year-old looking after your mother, that's like a pretty heavy burden.
What do they call it? Home care. Where were they
in
this situation? And maybe they were supposed to be there and they weren't. I don't know. Anyways, that's your Crime Court's public safety update. Again, I want to thank you all for listening, for sharing these episodes. We're going to continue to put out excerpts, highlights from the different podcasts and send them out. If you want to get put on our mailing list, martygoldlive@gmail.com. The link for PayPal donations, and again, the specific fundraising campaign that we're putting on now. That's also in the link in this in the episode description. Your support is integral. It's vital. Nobody else covers the stories we cover, whether it's at the city level, the provincial level. Please consider supporting this work, whether it's through sponsorships, advertising, public speaking engagements, what have you. We're here for you. Help keep us on the road towards the provincial election in 2023 in October.